Alright, class, we are back again. I know this is part 5. Hopefully we're bouncing around as we need to refine those skills when in reference to multiplying and dividing. It's such a necessary, such an important skill for us to learn. The better that we learn it, the better at math we're going to be. Let's go ahead and take a look now. Remember, I had that divide by zero error. Not quite sure what happened. It just blacked out on me here. Had to stop the program there. But I know that should read undefined. Okay, I just write undefined. We don't want to even go through that again. In our last example, we did number 19. In our next example, we might try something like number 20 for multiplying. If you look at number 20, I know that I have a negative multiplied by a negative. I know my answer is going to be a positive, so I'm just going to look at 16 times 12. Now, I could kick it old school down here and just say that, Mr. Claxton, I start in the bottom left, and I multiply up and to the left end. 2 times 6, I know, is 12. I've got to carry that 1 up here. And I know that 2 times 1, well, that's 2, but I have to add that 1 that I carried now, so it's 3. After I'm done with that place value, that 1's place, I can go ahead and cross that out. I'm done with it. So now let's go ahead and go over to this 10's place here. Okay, I know that in order to accommodate for the fact that I just moved over to the 10's, I have to put a ghost 0 there, a ghost place. A 0 holds a place in the 1 spot. I then have to say, okay, 1 times 6, well, 1 times 6 is 6. And if you look at that, if I read that as 10 times 6, then that would be 60. Very important for us to recognize that. Sometimes we miss that in middle school and elementary school. I know that this was from my last problem. I should have crossed that out. I'm not even going to consider that. I know now that 1 times 1 is 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the sum of those two values. 2 plus 0, 6 plus 3, and 1 plus 0. That gives me a final product of 192. Now we're going to look at this a different way. I'm going to use orange here to show this a different way. 16 times 12, mentally, what you should be thinking of in your mind is, if you can first think of, Mr. Claxton, why did you write 60? Difficult to write and talk at the same time. 16 times 12. Let's try first to just think about what is 16 times 10, because I know I could break this up. I could break 12 up and write 12 a different way, and I'm just going to give you a little preview of what we're going to be doing next week. I could write 12 as 10 plus 2. So I'm going to think about this as 16 times 10 and then 16 times 2. So 16 times 10 first. Well, Mr. Claxton, I know, just add an extra 0. You taught us that we were smarter than a calculator earlier this year. Okay, 16 times 10 is 160. At that point, I know that I need to add to 160. 16 times 2, and remember, I'm doubling here. Okay, doubling. So I know it's 16 plus 16. I know that second, in the 1's place, there's going to be a 2. Okay, and I know there's going to be a 30 here. If I could double 15 to get 30, well, I know that I'm close there. I'm only one group of 2 off to get 32. 160 plus 2. I'm taking 60 plus 30, and I know that's 90. So 160 plus 32 is 192. Okay, and that's how you can use that. Well, really what we're using here is the distributive property. Okay, the distributive property. I'm not chunking anymore. If you were going to use chunking, then you could have just looked at this as 16 times 10. Okay. Well, and this really is the distributive property again. 16 times 2. You can look at that that way as well, that's not using that chunking method that I explained earlier. Actually, the chunking method would be to use something like, well, I know that 16 can be broken down into 8 times 2. I know that 12 can be broken down into, well, 4 times 3. So what I could do here is I can try to find some nice numbers. For example, I know that 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to go ahead and write that. And then, done with that 8, done with that 3. And then I'm going to multiply that. I can multiply that times 2 times 2 times 2. Or I could just multiply it by 8. I know that 25 times 8, if I have 8 quarters, I have 200 of something. I have, however, one group of 8 less than 200. One group of 8 less than 200, I know, is just 200 minus 8, which is 192. Again, that's several different ways there that you can show your mental math. Okay? Show mental math, and that's for multiplying big numbers.